Hello viewers, Super GT here. Welcome to the Grand Prix of Certain Death. So we're driving this week's Daily Race C in the classic F1 car around Brands Hatch, very tight and twisty circuit. I'm sponsored by Doritos. May the MLG power overlook me and bring me good fortune on what is going to be certain death in this race. Away from the line we go, 8th place on the grid, starting from 2nd gear with 1 TCS, and it tends to give you a good launch. This car really slow and clunky gear changes, so we want to minimise the amount of gear changes as much as possible. Coming up into turn 2, turn 1 was actually quite clean. Turn 2 I've gone about 8 miles wide, come back on in 10th, sliding the car around. Not sure if there was contact, but I'm sideways regardless. Trying to cut back on these two guys and going for the cockpit view on this one. It seemed to be the best view for this. The one thing that I couldn't really cope with though, and this is my racing driver excuse number 4,822,000, and that is the sound was really weird. I almost couldn't hear the car. All I could hear was wind, or the air passing over the car, and all of the other cars. So it was a really strange dynamic with the sound, and it was honestly putting me off so much. But that's just my excuse for the race. If you see anything bad, any bad driving, it's because of that, obviously. And my hands were cold. So, sitting here in pretty 8th position, which is where I started. And so this guy's going to slide out, and I'm going to try to avoid him, make a bit of contact, and get myself a nice 5-second penalty. Yeah, okay then. That's going to completely ruin my race. Thank you very much, penalty system. So you just try to avoid someone and you get a penalty. Good stuff. And here we go then. Slowing down. That guy goes through us as we go down into 11th, 12th, 13th. Losing plenty of time. More than 5 seconds I would have thought. And quite importantly, positions, because it's so hard to overtake around here in these cars. So back into 12th, into turn 1, trying to hold our own, get a bit of a bump from behind, but I think it's helped if anything, although there's someone on our right hand side now coming up the hill into Druids. There he is, just giving us a brief glimpse of his front wing, but then just getting back ahead for the downhill left of Grenhill Bend, sitting then in 12th, up behind the Hungarian driver here. Someone slowing down, Sergeant Breadstick from a penalty. Coming through the final turn, the Hungarian all out of shape. The British guy almost gets pushed into the pit lane. And I'm going to quite happily go up the inside of the pair of them and take a top 10 position. So this is the time for my pit stop now. Coming in, smashing the wall for good measure on the way through. And the Doritos boys there doing a good job in the pit stop, thank you very much. Dropping down the order into 13th, 14th. Very precarious exit to the pit lane here at Brands Hatch. Pretty much come out right onto the racing line. So it just adds to the recipe of death essentially. So the amount of factors in possible death around this track have been greatly enhanced because of the car. It's a quite dangerous car. Because of the track. Very dangerous circuit, and just loads of things about the circuit that make it very difficult. There's lots of grass and gravel, there's no tarmac runoff, as we're going to see here as I slide wide, lack of concentration, smash into the explosive wall. Luckily, somehow managed to continue, and if we were going back to the 70s or 80s here in F1, that would have been certain death. And I just go for another little adventure across the grass here a bit later on. And yeah, guess what? Get myself a 5-second penalty, even though I lost time. Yeah, how does that one work? I accidentally exited the race with a big old rage quit. And oh, hello main menu, my good old friend. Right, we go again. What can we do this time from 10th? This has really not gone well at all. Someone up ahead actually got a jump start there. Away from the line we go, smashing into the back of that guy, going through him as well. And it's like a swarm of angry bees coming through turn 1, and most of us are off in the gravel. And look, it's like a bowling alley, or it's closer to a pinball machine rather than a racing circuit. And unfortunately, as a result of all of that, down to 16th or 17th temporarily. How we go about getting some of these positions back? And I just lost track of what I was doing there. I'm trying to change the view because I was put off by the stupid sound. So that's another factor of death. The fact that you can't hear your own car makes it very difficult to race. It just shows you how much you rely on audio until when it disappears, then you really realise how much you rely on it. So up the inside of the Hungarian driver here, now there's a tiny bit of contact, but look at this, right? Look in the mirrors on the bottom left and bottom right of the screen. He's definitely behind. You see him on the left mirror there, then on the right, so he's completely behind. And we go in here, and I've got 2 wheels on the curb. Definitely got 2 wheels on the curb, which is clean, but get a 5-second penalty for that. So I couldn't really quite work out that. But you know, well, I can because this track just loves to give out penalties basically, and I was on the receiving end quite a lot of times. So I managed to finish that race actually. I didn't rage quit. Finished 11th. Now this one, there's just something about this race. I just couldn't concentrate. I just could not do anything good. I was an absolute idiot. So I forgot to put my foot on the brake, and the car started rolling. You know, this track is notorious for being very hilly, so if it was a flat track, maybe I would have got away with that, but unfortunately there's a big hill at the start, so the car started rolling, and then I just forget to brake. I'm just driving like an absolute moron, so rage quit number 5 gazillion. Now this time, I've got no excuses, right? We got to get a good result, because this is just absolutely atrocious. I've been on the receiving end of death. I've died of death about 8,000 times, and dying of death is the worst thing you can do as a human being. So I've got to do something better about this. I've got to sort out my bloody driving. And with the 5 lights away now, there we go. I mean, the first mistake I've made is starting in first gear when you should start in second. But okay, we're in second place going into turn 1. We'll deal with that. Someone up the inside, bit of contact. You've got to expect the contact in this race. It gets very messy. I'm going to lunge him back up the inside, sent it from about a mile back, and then get past. And then the second mistake I've made there is going through Druids in second gear when you should really be in third. Again, as I kind of touched on earlier in the video, you want to minimise the amount of gear changes, or did I say that? Anyway, that's what you want to do. You want to minimise the amount of gear changes because they're so slow and clunky. So a lot of the time you kind of just stick it in a higher gear and keep it there, rather than going down a gear and then change it back up on the way out. So settling into 4th, at least I haven't been well and truly mullered this time around. I haven't got myself a 5-second penalty yet. So let's see if I can kind of keep this going. You can see there just how much you can cut that corner and not get a penalty. It's actually quite ridiculous. I'm pretty sure you can go actually all 4 wheels beyond the curb, which is quite strange, but that's how it seems to work. So someone there recovering from a penalty. Spaniard! Oh my god, that was a semi-death. That was a half send to the Shadow Realm, but the Angels just pulled him back just in time. Coming up the hill then, and there's going to be a push from behind, and not a great pass. Really, just I'll give it maybe 1 out of 10, but 10 out of 10 for effort. I mean, he tried, I suppose, but execution wasn't quite there. So quite low scores on the judges' scorecards for that one. And he's driven very wide. Is he going to be able to recover? Yes, he is. So down into 3rd, man. I am really wrestling this car. This is not going completely well, although it could be worse. I'm in 3rd. Started on pole, and from pole you really just want to get away from all the calamity behind. And now I am in the calamity behind, unfortunately, because of my poor start. So you've got to really just make sure I pull away from the guys behind. You just do not want to get embroiled in a battle, and that's exactly what's going to happen now because I've been an idiot and driven onto the grass. So my performance here is absolutely subpar, and that's being nice. This is absolutely abysmal driving, really. But when the prospect of death is beckoning, I think any man could, you know, it's going to affect any man or woman. It doesn't matter. The prospect of death can do this to any person. So, sitting now in 4th up the hill, and it's just not looking good. 5 seconds off the lead at this point. The German in the lead, he's just extending his margin so easily right now. Courtesy of all these mistakes that are being made back here, plus of course the fact that we are fighting, we're all in traffic here. We've got to worry about each other more than maybe try to catch up with the German. So we're trying to get a really good exit here. There's a bit of turbo lag in this car, and when I say a bit, I mean a freaking ton of it. So you've got to be really careful with that. And coming through then into Westfield Bend, keeping it in 4th gear. I mean, you can go down to 3rd for that one, but as I said, I prefer just to keep it in 4th. It's more stable in the higher gear, less wheel spin, less prospect of spinning up the tyres and sending yourself to the shadow realm, which isn't advised. And this guy just going really slow there. 2 wheels on the grass, as shady an overtake as you like, but get the job done. I mean, that could have easily resulted in my demise. But I keep it on and I stay alive for at least another lap. Well, I hope another lap. I mean, I could die just coming through this turn. I nearly do actually. So trying to catch up with Stevie B. So he has a strangely similar name to me. As we're coming down the hill, setting purple sectors here. Fastest lap at the moment, 1:13.8. Ideally need to be in the 12s if you want to be setting red hot pace. Even though, well, that's not even red hot pace. 11's in the race is red hot pace, I would say, or faster than that. So he's dicing with death here. Is Stevie B dancing with the Grim Reaper as he dips 2 wheels on the grass, which is not advised. I really would not recommend that at all, because, well, the Shadow Realm sucking force is very strong, and as soon as you start dipping 2 wheels on the grass, it's just going to pull you in. There's not many people who can resist that. Okay, lap 7 now. It took a couple of laps to really get onto the tail of this guy. Coming through here, coming out of this turn, he's just going to... It looks like he's backing off, or have I got a better exit? He's pulling over to the right hand side. I'm trying to get the slipstream, almost going to the back of him. I think he's just let me go, as possibly just to say sorry about the hit earlier. So all is forgiven, unless he's going to go for a big punt now, maybe. As we come up the hill, dodgy corner this, blind turn, cut it. You could really just cut that one quite a lot, as we saw earlier. As we go through the left-hander towards the final corner of the lap. Lap 7 and now lap 8, sitting 5 seconds off the lead, so the gap fairly constant. Now let's look at the fuel, because I've been sitting in lean setting 2 for the majority of that stint, trying to save a little bit of fuel, and you can see Airboss in the lead with 12%. I came in with 21, so I've saved 9% more than he has. And on the way out, going out with 70, and he's gone out with 90, so he's put in 20% more than I have. So I've slightly underfueled, he's definitely overfueled, and you can see that 5 second gap has now come down to 0.3. So I'm right on him now. He's probably wondering how the hell I've caught up so quickly, but when you have the Doritos boys working the strategy in the pit lane, there's nothing you can't do. Basically, it's Toto Wolff times a million. The Doritos guys know what they're doing. So coming through, the long left-hander of Surtees onto the back straight. Now, I kind of decided to do a bit of what's the term? Stalk challenge here. So kind of just sit behind for a while and then pounce a little bit later. Mainly with the idea of just trying to save a little bit of fuel, as I did underfuel. So at the end of this lap there will be 6 laps left. I've only got 6.3 laps at this current moment, so it's a bit nip and tuck with how much fuel I have. So I've got to be quite careful with that. So for now I was just deciding to sit behind. And it wasn't until about lap 11 where I realised actually I'm quite good on fuel. I could perhaps push for the pass now. I've done enough fuel saving. I've saved the polar bears, so let's go for the attack and kill the polar bears. So in the slipstream now, firmly looking up the inside and not quite there, trying to just sort of edge him into a mistake. by putting my nose quite close to the inside, making him think about me more than the corner. And at the moment he's actually driving quite well. He's resisting that, he's not really making a mistake. And again, I'm just going to stick my nose up the inside, make him think about a mistake. He doesn't quite do it. Poor exit on the exit of the turn though, and I'm going to get the run on the left hand side, the outside for the final corner. And I couldn't quite capture exactly where it was as I wasn't on the radar setting, but then eventually see him in the rear view mirror as we go through into the lead at the beginning of lap 12. 4 laps to go with 4.1 laps of fuel remaining, so we are good for fuel, but I might have to go back into setting 2. So this lap here needs to be a good one. Let's try and have a quick lap. Currently the fastest person on the circuit with 13.4, but 4 tenths nearly, or 3.5 tenths quicker through the first sector on lap number 12, sweeping through the long left, which we should just now name Leng for short. Coming up the hill then into the long right, and again purple sectors being set here, cutting this turn a little bit, and on the exit using a bit of the rumble strip in 4th gear up the hill. Someone is off, yellow flag, and that's going to put me off slightly. I cut that corner, but that you can't do. That was a little bit too much of a cut. 1 second up on our PB at the moment, only with a 0.5 second penalty there, and I've actually now built up an advantage of 2.2 seconds already on this lap, which is pretty astounding. So as we come up to the line, it's going to be the fastest lap of the race by quite a long way, 1.1 seconds quicker, 1 minute 12.3, I'll take that. And by the end of the race, everything was actually very comfortable. So it took a while to get into this race. It was a really bad start. It took me about 4 or 5 laps to really get into it, but eventually wrestling the race lead back and taking a victory at long last. So this is a real example of perseverance. I was driving like an absolute moron for about 10 hours, and then eventually did something good. But there we go. I do hope you enjoyed the video as always. Let me know your thoughts. I shall see you next time. Thank you so much again for 200,000 subscribers. Absolutely mega. Next stop is 1,000 trillion, of course. So I'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.